What is going on, everybody? Nate here. Today we are back in the Jeep yet again. I do apologize for not really getting many, kind of out of the vehicle videos lately. It's just been kind of difficult with the weather out here and all that kind of stuff. Currently in Toledo, it is like in the 30s and it's been snowing today and kind of rain mix, and it's been a miserable day out. But I do have some updates for you guys. I apologize for the camera kind of wobbling around. But today, like I said, I do have some kind of exciting updates. And excuse me if it does take a few minutes because I feel like it's been forever since I've done an update for you guys. But the last issue I believe that I was having with the Jeep was that the water pump was squealing, and ended up getting that fixed. Went out to Napa, ordered a new water pump for it that, got it here, bolted it up. The only issue that we had with it is that Napa didn't have any AMC engine blue paint, so we ended up getting GM blue, because they had Pontiac blue, Ford blue, or GM blue. And I got to admit, I'm going to show you guys a video here, kind of like an under the hood video that I did a while back once we got everything finished up, and it looks pretty spot on. So under the hood of the Jeep, you can see that basically from the distributor forward is completely clean, brand new paint. You see we have our new power steering pump here. All the parts, I think, yeah, the water pump and the power steering pump we both got from Napa. This is actually, as I mentioned, a 74 and earlier power steering pump, not a 79, which is kind of odd because you can tell 74 and earlier actually have a spindle that a nut threads onto like this, whereas the 75 and up basically just have a bolt that goes in there to hold the pulley on. So as I had basically every pulley on here has now been repainted. The power steering pump obviously had to come off. The water pump one as well also obviously had to come off, but the bottom pulley down there did in fact have to come off. And the reason for that is, I'm not sure, you probably won't be able to see it, but right about there is a bolt that goes into the water pump, and the only way to get that out is with a wrench. And ours was frozen into the water pump, not the block, because when you turned the water pump itself, the bolt would actually move with it, which told us that it was frozen into the water pump, not the block, thankfully. So the only way we could get a ratchet on there and an impact is to basically pull that bottom pulley off, which luckily wasn't that difficult. We were able to pull that off pretty quick. And then zip that off. The water pump came off. I think there's like 9 bolts in that water pump, which is just crazy. So basically a brand new water pump, which is resprayed. This is a GM blue, motor blue. This is not AMC blue because this is all that Napa had. They had Pontiac blue, GM blue, and Ford blue. The GM, or the Pontiac and the Ford blue were a much deeper color. And the GM blue actually looks really fits in. It shows up a lot brighter on the camera, but it really blends in really well with the block and the valve covers. The valve covers, they're pretty faded and dirty, so I'm sure that's a really close match. Like I said, I repainted the 3 pulleys, and I also repainted the fan here. That was pretty dirty, so we did do that. Other than that, what else have we done to the Jeep? Well, I believe I already mentioned the power steering pump. I did the heater core, and did all that stuff, but I think that's pretty much where we're at right now. Everything on the Jeep is finished, I'm afraid to say that, and I think we may have one more issue on our hands. I don't think it's going to be anything major. I think I probably know what it is, unfortunately, but I'm going to kind of look into that a little further. The latest issue that I've been having with the Jeep is that, and it just started today, like literally, I'm coming home from school right now. It's like 3 something in the afternoon. Literally on my way to school this morning, I pulled into my parking spot, turned the wheel, and I heard clunk, and turned it the other way, clunk, and I'm pretty sure that it's the ball joints, or could possibly be, something's loose under there, which I doubt, because we checked all that out before we went ahead and ended up getting the steering stabilizer to make sure everything was tight under there. So I don't think anything's loose. I think I'm pretty sure I know what the issue is, but you know, so far it's nothing major. But like I said, I think I am going to make this video into the heater box how-to, and you know, or the heater blower motor rather, for the CJ5, and I'm going to be talking about why I like the Blazer blower motor upgrade for the CJ5 Jeep and mine, and what the pluses are of it, what I think the negatives are of it, which honestly, on the top of my head, I can't think of any negatives. There are a couple, I'll get into those. But I'm just going to kind of give you guys an overview about what it is. So first of all, what is this Blazer blower motor upgrade that everybody's talking about for their CJ Jeeps? Well, it's just as simple as it sounds. It is a 1972 Chevy Blazer blower motor that basically bolts right up to a CJ5, and it is a much larger diameter motor, which in return has much more power, pushes much more air than the factory CJ5 blower motor. Now for those of you who have a CJ5, and I'm not sure if this works for CJ7s, I would assume it would. You know, I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't. But in short, the CJ5 blower motors suck. And I mean, they suck. Like, it is probably, it's honestly one of the worst things about the CJ Jeep. And the factory ones, they don't blow any air whatsoever. When I had my original one still in here, it was like, you know, the first week that I had the Jeep, I went ahead, had to use the defroster, and it didn't blow any air whatsoever. And it was horrible, you know. I mean, you could literally turn it on, because it's a 3-speed blower motor, and so is the Blazer blower motor. But when you had this thing on high, you could literally put your hand over the vent, and you could hear a little noise coming from the motor, you know, telling you that it was on, but you literally felt like a breeze. I mean, there was like no airflow whatsoever, and it was the most horrible thing. And unfortunately, I couldn't tell you how bad the heat was in it, because I didn't have a heater core in mind when I got it with the old blower motor. So basically, I have the blower motor, the new one, the Blazer one in here. It's amazing. I have it on high speed right now. You can actually hear this thing. I think you guys can probably hear it. It pushes so much air, and it was kind of funny. I put the blower motor in, and when I got everything hooked up, I turned it on, and I opened the defrosters, and all of this crap, dirt, there were freaking like rocks in there, everything just blew out. There was so much air force coming out of those vents, it was incredible. And you know, I obviously have my new heater core in there, which I got from Morris 4x4, and I'm warm in here, you know. Like I said, it's like mid-30s right now in Toledo, and I mean, this is you know, pretty much maybe well, I'd say it's about equal to the heat in my 99 Ford Escort, which, by the way, I did sell. That is out of my hands. Went to a friend of ours, you know, a very good friend, so you know, that is kind of out of my hair. Not that there was anything wrong with it. It was a great car, you know. That was my first car and got me through everything, you know. I've never had a problem with it. But back to the blower motor, you know, this thing pushes out heat pretty much the same as, in fact, I got turned down right now, I'm getting warm. It has the same heat, I would say, in any car, you know, that you can find today. And the only issue that I do have is that I'm letting some heat out from the doors, and I am going to be taking care of that. I put weather stripping around this door, and to help out with the water issues, and I never really thought about having the heat, you know, to kind of keep the heat in, but that helped out tremendously. And I had one roll of that weather stripping, and it didn't quite make it completely around the door, so there's a gap right here by my neck, and it does kind of blow some cold air on you as you're driving, so I do need to get some more weather stripping to take care of that. But honestly, I mean, this is great. You know, had a wave from a fellow CJ lover, but you know, I was really impressed when I got the blower motor. You know, it really does work. And so basically, let's talk about when you should do this. You know, when should you get a Blazer blower motor and put it in your CJ Jeep? Well, I would say that you need to do this. You know, first of all, if you have to pull the heater box out of the Jeep, the number one thing you have to do is get the blower motor. It is the best thing that you can possibly do. If you're already going to have the heater box out and you're going to have that whole mess, do it, you know. There's no point not to. The second time you'd want to do it is if you daily drive your Jeep like I do. You know, if you are going to use your Jeep in the winter, or even if you drive it in the rain and you have to use the defrosters, you're going to want to do the CJ Blazer blower motor upgrade, because that's the other thing this really helps with is the defrosters. You know, the old blower motor obviously didn't blow any air, and the defrosters were non-existent. You know, I mean, your windows would fog up. You know, you wouldn't be able to see crap, and it was really dangerous. I can tell you from experience, it was really dangerous. And the Blazer blower motor pushes so much air out of the defrosters. It works great. I wouldn't say it works great. It works decently. This, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the great things about owning a Jeep, is that the defrosters only go to the left and to the right of the windshield, so the center is still completely fogged. Okay, maybe it doesn't work perfect, and that's not because of the blower motor. That's just the way that the actual defrosters are designed. They have two defrosters, one in the driver's side, one on the passenger side, and they blow outward, so they blow towards both A-pillars, but there's nothing blowing towards the center of the windshield where the mirror is, so your whole center part of your windshield is going to be foggy, and that's no matter what blower motor you have in there. But basically, those are pretty much the two times you're going to want to do the Blazer blower motor upgrade. Honestly, like I said, there's no reason not to. I guess the only reason that you may not necessarily want to do it is if you don't drive your Jeep in the cold, you know, if you don't ever use your blower motor, you know, I mean, I guess that's a time, you know, that you may not want to do it, because honestly, pulling the heater core out is going to be the hardest part of the whole process, or the heater box, rather. It's a major pain, you know. The heater box is made to just fit inside up under that dash, and there is no wiggle room whatsoever. So that's pretty much the only downside of this. And also, the other thing, the downside is, and this is another issue, is you have to actually trim the firewall in order to make the bigger blower motor fit. And I'll put a picture up right now of the different sizes of the Blazer blower motor versus the original CJ blower motor. So you can obviously see that the Blazer blower motor is much bigger in diameter, which in return means that you're pushing much more air, as mentioned many times before. But let's go ahead and talk now about what you're going to need when you're going to do the Blazer blower motor upgrade. First thing that you're obviously going to need is the blower motor. And the best thing to do here is to call up your parts store. I personally love to use Napa. Napa, they always got everything you need. You know, they're really reasonable on pricing. I love Napa. But go ahead and, for instance, call up Napa, and to make things simple, tell them that you need a blower motor for a 1972 Chevy Blazer with a 350 Chevy and air conditioning. Just tell them that. Don't tell them, you know, if they ask you, you know, well, you know, what engine do you have and all this, don't tell them, oh, well, it's a 304 for, you know, a CJ5, you know, but I'm putting this blower motor in it. They're going to get all confused, and you're probably going to end up with a CJ5 blower motor in the end. So just go ahead and make things simple, you know, the less you know. So just tell them, you know, that you need a blower motor for 72 Blazer with 350 and air conditioning. The next thing that you're going to need is a die grinder, and that is to make the hole in the firewall bigger. I've seen where some people can actually use a hole saw, but I think the only time that you're really going to be able to do that is if you have the fenders off and you pretty much have the front end of the Jeep off, because there's no way to kind of fit the hole saw in there, you know, because it's kind of small, and there's no way you can do it from inside of the Jeep. You know, it's kind of up under the dash, so pretty much all you're going to have to do is get a die grinder up in there. So once you go ahead and get everything you need, and I'm pretty sure that's all you need, because the other thing that you don't need is you do not need the actual blower fan. You can use the old CJ blower fan. It, again, bolts right up to the Blazer blower motor. And if you really want to, like if yours is broken from the the old one, you can probably get a Blazer fan if you need to, but using the old one, you're gonna have no problem. So the steps to doing this: first of all, you're gonna need to drain out your coolant, or at least I think about half of your coolant, in order to obviously not have radiator fluid from the heater core spilling everywhere. And basically just go ahead, drain some of that out. The next thing you're gonna need to do is go ahead and pull off the heater tubes that go into the heater core, and those are right on the firewall on the passenger side, basically, of the air cleaner. So you're gonna have two prongs that stick out of the dashboard right there. They're obviously really easy to find, and it's best if you note which one connects where. You know, the one off the water pump goes on one side, and then the one that goes into the back of the intake manifold goes somewhere. And mine, unfortunately, didn't even have any hoses because I didn't have a heater core. So I'm not necessarily sure which way it goes, and I really don't think it matters. Honestly, I think you could get away with doing it either way. I don't think there's a difference, but you know, it's always best to just, you know, leave it alone. If it worked this time, it's gonna work the next time. Don't mess with it, really. So note what those did, and then the next thing that you're gonna want to do is climb under the dash and disconnect all of the connections, basically, for the handles on the dash. So those are for your, you know, air power, for your defroster, for your, you know, opening from the outside air to the inside air, all that kind of stuff. You're gonna want to disconnect all those. I believe there's 4 of them, and definitely when you go ahead and take those off, put some tape around them and actually mark, you know, where it goes, what it does, so that way when you go to put it all back together, it's gonna be a little bit easier. After you do that, you're there's somebody backing down the middle of the street right here. Not sure where they're trying to go, but after you go ahead and do that, you can start actually unbolting the heater box. And there are, I believe there's 4. I will post a link for the website where I found this information at to do mine. It's a great website. They have a lot of info, really helpful. But I believe, like I said, I think there's 4 bolts, or nuts rather, on the firewall. Go ahead, undo those. And another thing, that's another place that you may want to go ahead, just stick some tape, you know, where the actual bolts stick through, because there are some extra holes on the firewall, and if you don't go ahead and mark them, it may be hard to figure out where they need to go later on. So once you get those done, pretty much all you gotta do now is climb under the dash and wrestle the heater box out. This is gonna be a pain, and you know, this is gonna be the hardest part about the whole process. Is actually going ahead, pulling the heater box out. Like I said, it's really tight under there. If you have the courage and the strength, you can do it. So after you get the heater box out, after however long it takes, the next thing you're gonna do is once you have the heater box on the floor, you can go ahead and disconnect it, you know, everything from it, and if you need to replace the heater core, replace the heater core. And after that, this guy did not just stop for the stop sign. This is what I love about Toledo. Nobody here knows how to drive. But anyway, what you're gonna want to do is go ahead and actually take the blower motor, and I think there's some bolts that you know, go around the actual motor. Go ahead, take those out. Remember where it sits. You know, there's a plug on one side of it. Remember where that goes, and pretty much unbolt it. Take the Blazer blower motor, put it in, bolt it up. It's gonna bolt right up. Bolting up to the heater box, you're not gonna need to do any modifications to it whatsoever. And that's pretty much it for that. So the next thing is you wanna take that, and I would suggest going ahead and probably just taking that sheet from the heater box. You know, don't actually take the whole heater box and get it up there, but take that motor, set it up there, and kind of, you know, figure out how much you're going to need to cut away from the firewall, because you're obviously going to need to expand the firewall hole to accommodate for the larger motor. So once you get that figured out, like I said, the best way to do that, I found, is to just take a die grinder, take your time, just start trimming away some of the edges, and just have at it. You know, it's not going to be a perfect hole, you know, without doing it with a hole saw. There's really no perfect way you're going to be able to do it, so just take your time, get it done. Once you have that done, it's pretty much just a reverse process, putting everything back together, filling it up with radiator fluid, topping it off, letting it run, let everything kind of fill up, and try it out. You know, everything should plug and play. You know, the actual wiring harness is going to be a direct plug-in. You know, everything there is, like I said, going to be a direct plug and play except for the hole in the firewall. And once you have that done, it's going to be a world of difference. You guys are going to absolutely love it, and hopefully you guys are going to enjoy it. You know, hopefully it works out for you guys. But yeah, like I said, I will put the link to the website where I found this information in the description below. And that's going to, I think, pretty much wrap it up for this video. If you did enjoy, make sure to like it. Go ahead and leave a comment if you have any questions or comments. I will do my best to answer them. And thank you guys for checking this out, and hope you guys have a great and safe day.